One of the things that I did. Good evening, Town of Gilbert. It is now 6:01 p.m. and I'm calling the regular meeting to order. If staff would please take roll call.
Chair Kendall,
Here.
Vice Chair Updike,
Here.
Commissioner Baugh, Commissioner Bigelow,
Here.
Commissioner Clausen,
Here.
Commissioner Robb.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mike. At this time, members of the public may comment on matters not on the agenda. The commissioner's response is limited to responding to criticism, asking staff to review a matter communicated upon, or asking the matter to be put on a future agenda. Are there any communications from citizens?
Mr. Chair, no, there are not.
Thank you. We'll now move into administrative items. Consider the approval of minutes for the regular meeting held on September 17th, 2025. Are there any edits the commission wishes to make?
Mr. Chair, I did receive some edits from Vice Chair Updike that I have incorporated into the minute packet in front of you. Just to give a quick description, it was pertaining to the study session DR 25-107, the Brunette Building. It was just a note about the fiber cement panels being corrected to a layer of row of split face block. So a technical change in there just to clarify that. So if there's a motion to approve the minutes with that update.
Perfect. Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes from September 17th with those edits.
And a second?
I'll second that motion.
I have a first and a second. Please vote. All right, the meeting minutes from September 17th, 2025 have been approved. Now move into the public hearing. Items will be heard on one public meeting, at which time anyone wishing to comment on a public hearing item may do so. Comments will be heard from those in support or in opposition to an item. In order to comment on a public hearing item, you must fill out a public comment form indicating which number you wish to be heard. Once the hearing is closed, there'll be no further public comment unless requested by a member of the commission. After the public hearing, the commission may act on all items not required additional staff, public, or commission comment with a single vote. I'll now open the public hearing for Z25-10 LDC text amendment. Kristen, if you could please provide the presentation.
All right, good evening, Commission. Thank you for having me. The case I'm bringing before you tonight is for Z2510, an amendment to the LDC for the Heritage Village Center development standards. A specific request that we are bringing forward tonight is to increase the height within the Heritage Village Center zoning district. This is just the HVC zoning district. It is not the entirety of the Heritage District. A little bit of background as to how we got here today. This started in 2023 at a council retreat where an Urban 3 presentation was provided. This presentation highlighted the economic impact of varying types of development. At that time, staff was directed to kind of look into how this may benefit the town and the Heritage District. So in 2025, we presented some research and some follow-up information to the council. We provided some visualization on what increased buildings might look like within the district. We brought forward a handful of community research from different comparable communities across the country just to see how they approach height. And we were directed to kind of keep moving forward, look into it more, reach out to additional stakeholders like developers and architects and things like that. So with that, I will hand off the next two slides to Mike.
Mr. Chair, Vice Chair, Commissioners, in 2023, Urban 3 completed a comprehensive economic analysis of Gilbert with an emphasis on employment corridors, including the Heritage District. Their findings underscore a critical point. As Gilbert approaches build-out, Gilbert must be strategic with its remaining land. That means encouraging gentle density and a mix of uses, especially in areas like the Heritage District, to ensure the tax base can support both current services and future growth. This slide highlights Urban 3's findings regarding taxable value by acre in Gilbert in the graphic up here. And then it also highlights sales privilege revenue by acre and value per acre by building type in the lower left image. The brown bar represents value per acre by building type, and the blue bar represents sales privilege by acre. When considering current conditions in the Heritage District, Gilbert falls mostly within the low and medium density commercial and mixed use categories, so kind of down in here. This 2025 text amendment modifies the 2005 policy from 55 feet to 75 feet, an increase of 25% over the 20 years with a potential bonus height of up to 90 feet or 40%. This increase in height creates opportunities for more medium and high-density mixed-use development illustrated in the lower middle and right boxes to help maximize both sales privilege revenue by acre and value per acre by building type. The analysis showed that mixed-use developments such as the CoLab and Building 313 in the Heritage District are among the most fiscally productive in Gilbert. These buildings maximize value per acre by stacking stories and integrating residential, commercial, and office uses, and increase a community's revenue potential by expanding the tax base, attracting investment into the area, bringing additional occupiers into the Heritage District, and lowering the per capita cost of public services. This height increase is the first policy change to increase height in the Heritage District in 20 years. In 2008, the commercial land value per acre was around $573,000. In 2025, that value rose to nearly $2.5 million per acre. That's a 336% increase from 2008 to 2025. This increase has caused Gilbert to consider increasing height to respond to market demand. By increasing building height for the first time in over 20 years, this 25% uplift unlocks greater economic potential per acre, generating more community wealth while preserving a compact, efficient development footprint. It's also important to note that while Gilbert is primarily a residential community, its operations are largely funded through sales privilege taxes at 59%, in part because the town does not have a primary property tax in place. That makes it essential to increase the productivity of its commercial and industry-focused areas, especially as the town reaches full build-out. So a 25% increase in height in 20 years like the proposed in this text amendment can have a meaningful impact on long-term fiscal sustainability, allowing Gilbert to maintain the high quality of life for our residents and businesses alike. And I will give it back to Kristen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so in addition to all of that information, another driving factor is for the desire for an 18-hour downtown. This comes from a goal in our redevelopment plan, somewhere where you can live, work, and play all within the same general district. in an area like the Heritage District, it makes sense that to achieve this, you need to build upwards as opposed to elsewhere within the town where you could achieve this mixed-use style environment horizontally. The Heritage District has such small parcels that a horizontal mixed-use style development just isn't feasible. You need to build up instead of out in an area like this. So to summarize what it is exactly that we're requesting, I have our current standards here on the left and our proposed standards on the right. Our current standards are a maximum height of 55 feet and 4 stories. Step backs are applied when adjacent to single-family residential. Those step backs occur at the 2-story mark. We don't have options for bonus incentives. If you want increased height, you have to do that through a PAD rezoning process or sometimes through administrative relief if it's a minor increase. What we're proposing is a maximum height of 75 feet for all of the HVC zoning district. We would keep the step backs adjacent to single-family residential, but we would also implement them along Gilbert Road. For parcels that touch Gilbert Road and want to go to 75 feet, we would incorporate step backs starting at 55 feet. Those step backs would be 1 foot per foot in height. We also are proposing bonus incentives for parcels located off of Gilbert Road that do not touch Gilbert Road to allow those parcels to potentially develop up to 90 feet if they incorporate a number of bonus items that I will touch on in a few slides. So to better visualize where those heights can actually go in the district, I provided this map for you. The purple parcels are all parcels that touch Gilbert Road, whereas the red parcels are parcels that are located off of Gilbert Road and have the eligibility to go to 90 feet if they incorporate those bonus items. There are a handful of parcels that are more flag-shaped that aren't developable at the required 10-foot build-to line that the district requires. That was brought up in the Redevelopment Commission study session, and we have taken that into consideration and put a portion in the code amendment that allows, at the discretion of the planning manager, those parcels to possibly develop up to that 90 feet because they can't develop at the 10-foot build-to line even though they touch Gilbert Road. So why did we choose 75 feet? We looked at our current development, we explored what's approved, what's already built. We researched 18 different communities across the country. We also reached out to 6 different developers and architects to pick their brains about development trends that they're seeing. This is a list of 8 structures within the district that are approved. The top one is obviously the water tower. It's at 125 feet. We also have a handful from the upcoming Heritage Park development, the Hernway parking garage, the CoLab, and the university building. The bottom 4 buildings are all within the 75 feet limit that we're requesting today. So these are those bonus items that I mentioned earlier. We have them separated into 2 categories. These options would allow the parcels located off of Gilbert Road to potentially develop up to 90 feet if they choose one option from the left-hand circle, including underground parking, 10% of public parking in excess of what they are required to park on site anyway, must be maintained on their site. They can't utilize an AUP for that. Or if they utilize all non-combustible construction type for their development, then they can gain that extra 15 feet in height. Or you can choose 2 options from the circle on the right, which includes 10% minimum open space and landscaping. The Heritage District doesn't require open space and landscaping, so this is a benefit. A certain percentage of art dependent on the construction costs of the development. This ranges from 1% contribution, for a 0.5% contribution to a 1% contribution depending on what those construction costs total. Public amenities like rideshare spaces or EV charging spaces, step backs to assist with design or sustainability measures. The sustainability, we would want them to be LEED certification eligible, not necessarily actually obtain your certification, but we need them to show that they are eligible to have it. So these are 2 buildings within the district that are built. They exist today. They do exceed the 55 feet by right height that we allow today. You see the CoLab on the top. It's 4 stories. It's 64 feet tall. The university building on the bottom is almost 70 feet. It's also only 4 stories. So our code today does allow 4 stories. However, if those buildings exceed 55 feet in height, then they can't build their 4th story unless they go through a rezoning process to obtain permission through a PAD. These were both done through a PAD. So in addition to looking at our current development, we also went on a walking tour of the district. This was largely due to because we know that the water tower is a huge point of conversation when it comes to the Heritage District. Preserving the view of the water tower, it's always a tough question. Where are we preserving that view from? Pedestrian scale, vehicular scale, outside the district coming in, where is it important to do so from? So we did a walking tour to gain a pedestrian perspective. I've included 6 pictures here of just different vantage points showing that you can see the water tower from a handful of locations as it exists today, but many of these developments are only single-story developments. If they were to redevelop and build to their by right height of 55 feet today, you wouldn't be able to see the water tower today. So a couple of examples of that. This is Gilbert and Vaughn at the southeast corner. This is a single-story building. You can see that you can see the water tower today, but if you developed to that 55 feet, your view would then be blocked. And just as another example, I included a 2-story building. This is Gilbert and the Canal, just outside Culinary Dropout. If you took this 2-story building and they chose to redevelop to the allowable height of 55 feet, the view of the water tower would then be blocked. So after looking at our current development, we also looked into 18 different communities across the country. These were largely chosen due to their proximity to the Phoenix area. Some of them are identified benchmark communities, and a lot of them are just general communities of interest from our team. This is summarizing those heights from the communities. You'll see that they are largely a range of height and not just one stationary height. This is due to the fact that a lot of them use proximity-based zoning. It can be based off how close they are to transit, how close they are to the center of their business district, things like that. The yellow line is 55 feet. The green line shows 75 feet, which is what we're proposing today. And you can see that 5 of these communities do meet or exceed that 75-foot height requirement. The next couple of slides are just going to be examples of those communities. So this is Cherry Creek, Colorado. They allow 3 to 12 stories for a maximum height of 45 to 150 feet. The south end of Charlotte, North Carolina, they allow a maximum height of 50 to 130 feet, and they do implement a bonus structure similar to what we're proposing this evening, where they allow a bonus height of 75 feet to 300 feet. 300 feet's a little crazy. We are definitely not asking to go that high, but we did kind of incorporate their structure of a bonus element into what we're proposing. Asheville, North Carolina is the last example I have for you. They have a minimum height requirement similar to our district, and they have a maximum height of 75 to 265 feet. So lastly, we reached out to a handful of industry professionals. The main takeaway we took away from those conversations is that over time, the floor heights for the different uses have increased. This is largely due to the types of uses that are becoming more popular. You're seeing experience-based uses. When it comes to office, you're seeing Class A style offices where people want hotel-style amenities with their office space, and they're not looking for like large-scale office complexes or anything anymore. But these type of uses often utilize a larger floor height. This is summarizing the average floor heights that those different developers and architects said that they're seeing for these different uses. Commercial, they're seeing 16 to 22 feet. Office, 12 to 16 feet. Residential, 10 to 13 feet for an ideal building height of 75 feet. Once you get over 75 feet, you start trying to encroach into that high-rise building code limit, and a lot of developers don't want to go there unless they're really going there. So 75 feet was kind of the sweet spot that we heard in our conversations. So we took those numbers and we built just a concept development with a ground floor commercial of 20 feet, and we put 3 floors of office above it at 16 feet. This in no way is to say that we're assuming that we're going to get 3 floors of office. It's just for an example. But this 4-story building, which 4 stories is allowed today by right, already exceeds the 55-foot requirement. That is what we have today. This building would be 68 feet tall. That doesn't include a parapet, which could be an additional 5 feet tall. So these next slides are going to be some concept developments that we had. I wanted to showcase what they could look like at 55 feet and what they could look like at the height that we're proposing. So this is Gilbert Road and the railroad at the chamber site. Again, we have no intention of the chamber going anywhere. This is just for concept purposes. The top one is a 3-story building. It's ground floor commercial at 9,000 square feet, and it's got 2 stories of office above, totaling about 43,000 square feet, with included parking, 52,800 square feet. So if you took that development and you increased it by 2 stories, your building would then be 72 feet tall, and you would increase your office usage to 72,600 square feet. And this is just another vantage point of that concept. It's a great example of what step backs could look like. And then that same development in a larger context of the district. And then the second example, we wanted to include one of the bonus eligible sites. So this is Vaughn and Oak on the northwest corner. The top image is 55 feet. It's a 4-story building with ground floor commercial of about 18,600 square feet. You've got 3 floors of residential above and a row of townhomes along Oak Street. If you took this development, you added 3 stories of residential to it. Your commercial would remain the same because it is ground floor, but you would increase your residential usage to 335,000 square feet. This concept development does incorporate the bonus items as well, where it provides underground parking, and it does also provide 10% of landscaping. And then this is just that same development in a larger context. So this next slide is the next steps and where we are today. We are currently on step 4 with the Redevelopment Commission public hearing recommendation. It's already gone through study sessions with both the RDC and the Planning Commission. We did take it to the Chamber of Commerce recently as well, and they're reviewing our proposal. Our next step would be to take it to Planning Commission public hearing for their recommendation, and then it is slated for a November Town Council study session, with the last step being a Town Council determination. So a little bit of feedback from the different commission study sessions. This is some summaries from the Redevelopment Commission. Feedback that we received was that commissioners were generally supportive of the increase in height. Have we considered distance from Gilbert Road for bonus eligibility as opposed to property lines touching? And that is where that stipulation came in that I kind of mentioned at the beginning with the build to line and the discretion of the planning manager. How will increased height impact older buildings? To answer that, I would just like to say that our building department would still review this just as they would any other department to ensure that the structures of the upcoming developments meet code and their surrounding developments. How will parking be managed? I will touch on parking in just a moment. We did have resident feedback as well, 3 different residents. Some feedback that we got from them was that the height change should be managed through the redevelopment plan, and that the 200 to 300 block of Gilbert Road should not be part of this increase to preserve the existing development. We did explore the opportunity of doing this through the redevelopment plan, and although that is an option, it's not the only option. It is a correct path as well to go through the text amendment process like we're doing today, similar to how the mixed-use zoning district was recently established. So Planning Commission study session, commissioner feedback was that there were concerns with parking. They really wanted to know why this was necessary. They wanted to know what your feedback was, and they wanted to know if there were specific users driving this request. We did also have 2 residents provide feedback. It was the same as what we heard at the Redevelopment Commission, but also that we need to keep 55 feet on Gilbert Road and maybe allow taller elsewhere. So to answer some of your parking concerns, this is highlighting what our parking process is. Parking is not going to change. We're not changing that process whatsoever. The way we manage parking right now is through an administrative use permit. You can apply for that if you are a non-residential use, if there is parking available within 1,000 feet of your parcel, and if there is parking available. It's not required for the town to provide parking to you, but if it is available, then we do have that process for you to go through. So if a new development were to come in, they want to build to 75 feet, but they can't self-park their site, if we don't have any parking available for them, then they can't build the development. So again, just to summarize, what we're requesting is an increase in height to the HVC zoning district as well as the incorporation of some bonus items. Why we feel like this is necessary, it creates a streamlined, quicker process for developments to meet the code that we have today, essentially with the 4-story requirement. You're seeing 4-story buildings already that don't meet the height requirement that we have, and that's really why we're trying to bring this forward, is to bring it into better compliance with our existing code. It does have positive economic impacts, and it does meet the development trends that we're seeing currently. So with that, we do recommend that you recommend approval to the Planning Commission of Z2510. And I am available for your questions. Thank you for listening to me talk for so long.
Commissioners, are there any questions for staff? Thank you, Kristen.
I have one. It's more for council. Should I recuse myself for the voting on this if I own 2 pieces of real estate that will be affected by this?
For safety's sake, probably.
Okay. Do you want me to do it now or once we vote, or?
I mean, do you have substantive questions to ask at this point, or was this, okay. Go ahead and do it now, then.
Thank you, Commissioner Bigelow. Absolutely.
I've got some questions. In your example of the two proposed developments at 55 and 92 feet, correct me if I'm wrong, but the bonus incentive allows for up to 90 feet.
Yes, Chair Kendall, Commissioner Clausen, that is correct. That extra 2 feet comes from our code allowance for an encroachment into height for a parapet.
Okay.
That's where this 2 feet would come from.
Okay, perfect. So that leads me into, I think, my biggest comment and or concern. I think this is a great step in the right direction to allow flexibility. And I think when we're looking at revising the land development code and amending to allow more density, flexibility is incredibly important, because every single site has intrinsic characteristics and unique characteristics that are site-specific. I guess my biggest question is, you pointed out, and I work with developers all the time, that 75 is kind of that sweet spot. Going over that changes the construction type, material type that you have to build with. And so I question whether 90 feet is enough. And I would like to throw out, why not have the ability with bonus incentives to go 110 or 120? Because again, and if you look at your map, and for any concerned citizens, anything like that, staff, you guys have done a great job identifying kind of really what we're talking about here. On Gilbert Road, you're not talking about that bonus incentive. It's off of Gilbert Road. And even beyond that, sites will dictate how high you can go just by nature, right? But having the ability to go to 110 or 120, I think could be more beneficial and free up more economic investment into the area. I'm just not sure if 90 is going to do it.
Okay.
Any additional questions or comments? Commissioner Rabb?
Yeah, I just had a couple of questions. The first one is more on process. I know we've heard from the public about potentially aligning this with the update to the redevelopment plan. If that was considered, what would be the process to amend the HVC development standards at that point? Would we still be going through a text amendment? We would just be doing it later?
Sure. So Chair Kendall, Commissioner Robb, I might have to phone a friend when it comes to the redevelopment process or the redevelopment plan process. But the way that works is every 10 years, the redevelopment plan is redone. There's a high level of participation in that. That's specific to this redevelopment area. So that's where this kind of differs from how, let's say we were to do a height increase for any other zoning district. They would not have a redevelopment plan to go through that process first. This one is in a redevelopment area, so that plan does exist. It exists as more of a guiding document versus an adopted ordinance by council. So if we did go that route, then we would go through the redevelopment plan process, which I think is up 2028. And then we would be back here doing the same process that we're doing right now. It's an extra step.
Okay, that's what I thought. My other question is about, I guess, the developers that would be looking for this. I know you in part of your presentation, you talked about the fact that there's not someone specific right now that's asking for this. There has been recently, obviously, with Heritage Park going through the process of getting a PAD to go taller. Do you believe that this proposed text amendment could potentially draw potential developers to come to the Heritage District that might otherwise not do it right now because they don't want to go through the time and effort?
I think so, but I'm not an economic development expert, so I'm gonna.
It won't hurt.
It won't hurt? Okay, thank you. That was my other question.
Commissioner Updike, do you have any questions or comments?
No, but good presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, and Commissioner Clausen mentioned it. When we're at 90 feet and 75 feet, the parking increases. Is that because that is underground? There was a
Yes.
slide where where it showed like 50-something thousand square feet of parking, and then 128 in the example. That one, yes.
Can you please ask your question one more time?
The parking shows 82,000 feet versus 7 stories at 128,000. Is that underground?
Yes, so this particular development, I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, I apologize. But we did ask them to incorporate the bonus structure we had. They could pick and choose however they wanted to show that it is possible. And for the 7-story development, they do have a level of underground parking as well as a parking structure. So the increase in height allows you to go a little bit taller.
Understood. And then as far as this is off of Gilbert, right?
Yes, this one is, concept site is right near Park University,
Okay.
general area.
I actually agree with Commissioner Clausen in the possibly extending it to like 110. However, I do have some concerns about that. What would that do to, you mentioned high-rise and structure. What does that look like when someone's getting into over, let's say, 100 feet?
Sure. So, Chair Kendall, when you start getting into the building code for high-rise building code, and this is not my area, so I'm going to do the best I can to explain it. 75 feet does allow you to still utilize like stick construction, whereas once you get above 75 feet, that's not the exact number, depending on whether you're doing like loft above style buildings. But you're required to use non-combustible building materials once you reach a certain height. Whereas if you're less 75 feet, you do kind of have that flexibility of maybe you're doing podium on the ground floor and then you're doing stick construction above. Once you get past that, you don't have the option to use stick anymore. You have to use the more substantial building materials.
They have to switch to like concrete and steel.
Like a tilt-up type of?
No, concrete, steel, no. Tilt-up's more industrial.
Got it.
But like, the issue is for developers is moving to concrete and steel also exponentially increases the cost. And so, you know, if they can stick to stick frame construction at 75 feet and are forced into concrete and steel at 90 feet, is that enough density to justify the exponential increase in cost on now across the entire building, right? And that's my biggest concern, right? If we're going through this, it's like, let's go through this, like, and make it beneficial for everybody involved, including the town. I mean, maybe, you know, it's a bonus incentive up to 90 feet with your pick 1, pick 2, and maybe it's a bonus incentive then up to 110 if they pick 1 from 1 and 2 from box 2.
Okay.
Right? And they make it like, let's make it a win for the town. And again, I think site characteristics are going to drive so much of that decision-making. If you're dealing with a tight site, they're just not going to be able to satisfy all of the bonus incentive requirements, but larger sites potentially could. And so I would just be a proponent of maybe looking at that. So I think in terms of tonight and approving a text amendment, are we able to, if we approve it as is like tonight, is that 90 feet solidified, or will conversations continue related to amending what that maximum height is, and we can have ongoing conversations about what that height looks like?
I don't know the answer to that. Can I phone a friend? John, do you know how that works with, since this is a recommendation, do they need to recommend the 110 to 120, or can that be changed if they're recommending approval at 90?
I think the trouble with a text amendment that goes in that direction, it could have bleed through into other areas, which would probably require a return and redraft at several levels. I mean, and this is a non-legal opinion, is with, 2028 coming up, that's when you make the additional move, if there's going to be an additional move.
Okay.
But no, you certainly can make the recommendation. I just don't know how it's going to play out.
Would there be like a follow-up PDA where they hit that 90 and then request further height?
So we haven't looked into how that would look, since this is kind of the first we're discussing it. That can be an option. I mean, it could be something similar to what we do now with like administrative relief process, or through just like a PAD process that we have currently. Or you could make the recommendation now to change the 90 to 110. I don't. Or add the combo structure, like Commissioner Clausen was mentioning. 90, you can choose one or choose two. If we wanted to contemplate go higher, then maybe choose one and choose two. So you're choosing 3 options to incorporate into your site, and that gets you even additional height.
Commissioner Clausen, how does that ROI for someone looking to develop the building?
Well, I mean, density could just make or break a project. I mean,
Right.
it could mean the difference between a project starting and never starting. So, I mean, yeah, and it's hard to say. And 90 feet may help a lot of projects to get off the ground. I think it's a great step. I mean, overall, I don't know if my fellow commissioners have any other comments. I mean, I would like to press forward on this issue, and I would recommend and support approving this draft amendment to the Land Development Code. That's just my one thing. If we're going to go through it, let's go through it. So,
Any other comments or questions from the commissioners? Commissioner Rapp? Commissioner Updike?
I will just say from my perspective with construction types and combustible construction, there's other things that play into that. There's occupant loads and how close they are to other buildings and other hazardous components to the use. And there's so many things that design teams will look at even at a single-story structure that they consider non-combustible construction. So I don't speak as well to stacking wood construction because I don't do it personally, but I think some design teams inherently are going to go non-combustible, and I'm just throwing that out there for the conversation. I love that we're going higher. I think we go even higher in 28. Why not? But for now, I think you've done a good job with the research you've done, and I like where it's at right now.
Commissioner Rapp?
The combustible discussion that's come up made me think of another question. How it works with the fire department. So has the fire department been talked to at all about building heights, and do they have the right and enough equipment should additional buildings with height come in quickly to be able to deal with any potential issues?
So Chair Kendall, Commissioner Rabb, I'm going to answer this as best as I can. Do they have the available equipment and stuff? I would assume they have been involved in this conversation. Let me start there.
Okay.
But I'm not equipped to answer their ability with like equipment and stuff like that. I would assume that they're on board with it since they have been involved in these conversations. I can say that the non-combustible building materials being added to the bonus structure was largely at the request of them. We can't require developments downtown to use non-combustible building materials if the building code doesn't require it. We can choose it as like a voluntary option, which is what this structure is. It was kind of designed to give people more of an incentive to utilize a non-combustible building material, which assists with fighting fires in an area as compacted as the district.
Okay, that helps. Just knowing that they were involved in
Yes.
the conversation helps. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Perfect. Since there's no applicant, public comment. And we have 2 public comments. Mary Ellen?
Commissioner Torgerson, Councilmember Torgerson, Chair Kendall, and Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Mary Ellen Frescas, a 30-year resident of Gilbert. I'm also a property owner in the Heritage District and a business owner. So this is my 4th meeting, so I've attended a couple with the Planning Commission, a couple with you, because I think it's important. So I just kind of wanted to tell you what my feeling is after having attended these meetings. As you know, I think I've said this before, I am not against taller buildings and more dense development in the Heritage District, but I am against it on the 200 and 300 block of Gilbert Road. And the reason for that is that having been very involved in the redevelopment plan that currently exists, I know that a very important part of the stakeholders and the public that were involved was the small-town feel of Gilbert. And I think that that is what makes our downtown a destination. And the small-town feel is kind of like, it's pedestrian-friendly, and it has that heritage or that historical kind of architecture in those two blocks. During my attendance at the other meetings, and this one also, I felt that there was a lot of concern about parking. I think that, you know, it can be solved. I mean, our south anchor went underground, so I know that there are solutions to that. I just never felt that we were like a Tempe wannabe. You know, we are who we are, and we have that small-town feel. I also felt that I heard from commissioners that, the planning commissioners said, why are we rushing into this? You know, we're going to be looking at the redevelopment plan anyway, so perhaps that's a time to look at this in a more holistic manner. And that's basically just my comments. I'm not against the taller buildings, even if you want to go as tall as you want to go. I just don't think that we want to affect the current look, the current feel that we have in the central core, in the central business core, which I think is the 200 and 300 block. So thank you very much. Those are my comments.
Thank you, Mary Ellen. Alan Fitzgerald?
Good evening, Commissioners and Chair of the Redevelopment Commission. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. I'm a 40-year resident. I am a stakeholder in the Heritage District. I am an owner of the part of the Heritage Court. And so all of these choices that are being made along the corridor that is Gilbert Road affects my investment, affects my clients, my customers, the people who come to see me, who love the downtown. I don't want to get stuck in, we love the downtown the way it is, as if there's nothing else that can be done that would make it better, because there are things that will make it better. What I really have been reacting negatively to is this text amendment without the requirements for the livability, the accessibility of the downtown. We have only vague requirements about private development requests, but no idea, are these hotels? Are these office buildings? You know, how does this fit into the feel of what we're going to create? The communities, the 18 communities that have been presented to this commission, as well as planning and zoning, we don't know why those communities were chosen. You know, do they match our desires as a community, as the town of Gilbert, in the downtown? We don't see that, we don't know that. I don't know those communities, I haven't traveled there. I've been around the world in my business for 20 years to countries, Asia and Europe, often, and I see that development, and they create pedestrian areas. There's no conversation here about pedestrian usability. That's been a big deal for me in the downtown. And of course, the weather is getting nice now in the middle of August. It's not great. But how do we get around? How do we interact? How do we make this home? How will we make this community? I really support the South Point project, South Anchor, sorry. And that looks good. That's going to fit well in that corner. So that's a new thing for downtown, right? Especially people living there in that part. There's obviously residents. So I'd like to stress that these requirements that seem to be driving this text amendment aren't very well defined. Would it be more efficient? Perhaps. Would it be appropriate? Probably not in some areas. And I'd like those areas to be defined. I'd like to see those areas defined in the new town general plan and the Heritage District Village Center. That's what I would like to see. I'd like to see that process. It's a robust process. It creates good ideas. If these building heights go through stakeholders the way that it has in the past, and they say, let's increase the height, which I'm sure that would happen. Actually, I'm certain it would happen. It would be done with the perspective of how the place is going to be used in the future, how we can plan for the future. These vagaries that have been presented in this text amendment, we can all nod our head. Yeah, it makes buildings more efficient. Okay, but does it make it what we want? And everybody that wants it is a potential shareholder, stakeholder in the downtown, whether they're customers or property owners. So I want you to consider that. And if somebody comes in and wants to put a tall building in, give them all the leeway and consideration that you can. And make that happen if it's appropriate. And when we get this changed in the way that we've been doing it, the way we always do it is always the right way, but it's the way we know creates community and gets the ideas into the mixture of what we should be doing. I strongly agree with Mary Ellen on the 200 to 300 block and height restrictions there. And please don't put in the minutes that I support going bigger, because it sounds like I agree in everything being bigger. Very judiciously placed and built with concept and forethought. Great. Thank you for your time and appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Alan. Are there any additional questions by the commissioners for staff? Commissioner Clausen.
Yeah, I've got one for staff that I think could clear up and maybe help some of the concerns from the two residents that we heard tonight. Because I would agree, like in general, this text amendment seems very simple, if you will. Like there's not a whole lot to it. But correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, the great thing about the Heritage District is we have a set of design guidelines and land development code in place for HVC zoning today. And right now, any project that has to go through that process has to go through us and meet and staff requirements. They have to go through the process with staff to meet all of the land development code and HVC guidance, right?
Yes.
All this is doing is literally changing the maximum height portion of that. They are still required to meet all of the guidelines that are within the district, correct?
Yep, Chair Kendall, Commissioner Clausen, that is correct. It's still the exact same process. The process is not changing. In addition to changing the height, 55 to 75, we are incorporating the bonus incentives as well.
Exactly.
Which is a new portion of the
So
code.
I think looking at it from that perspective, what has made the Heritage District great thus far is those guidelines. It's those, it's the characteristics and the land development code that's in place today, right? And any new development is going to have to meet all of those requirements. Mm-hmm. This just gives a little bit more flexibility to increase height. So that's how I've been viewing it. It's not changing everything. It's changing one line item, but everybody still has to jump through the same hoops.
Correct.
So yeah, with that, I thank you for both residents for speaking tonight and respect both of your opinions.
Thank you. Anybody else? I too share the vagueness concern, but I appreciate the clarification. I would imagine this, well, let me ask this. Is there any specific type of development or developer that with these types of changes would either be attracted or the town would be seeking?
Mike, do you have?
I think the overarching thought is just the mixed use sort of developments, that high density mixed use. So I think that's really, it's being able to allow that extra height to bring in a mixture of different users. Can't necessarily predict the future, but thinking about the residential, the office, the commercial, being able to provide more opportunities with that height to bring in that different mixture of uses within kind of the limited geography of the Heritage District. So I guess not a specific target, but I would say having the availability to create a more, diversified economic base within the Heritage District.
to add to that, it does allow things like the collab and Park University that are within the 4-story requirement. They wouldn't have had to go through the extensive 12-month process of a rezoning. They would have just come through you, and you would have been the final determining factor to allow them to do halfway what our code allows today by developing to 4 stories. Their story floor heights were just larger.
Does that include multifamily?
Collab and Park University?
No. Anybody that were to come in?
Oh, yes. Yes, anything comes to you guys for brand-new developments.
All right, I'm not too excited about multifamily personally, but
If I can touch on that, the way the code exists today in the HVC zoning district, multifamily is allowed by right for loft above. If you have ground floor commercial, you can today build multifamily above that up to 55 feet. It's just how South Anchor was developed,
okay.
and it would remain that way. We're not changing the zoning district of HVC. That establishment would remain the same. You would have to have ground floor of commercial, office, retail, something that's non-residential, and you could develop residential above it.
On top. Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more comment, sorry. To address why now, I can personally just speak to, I think, I used to be a business owner in the Heritage District. My wife and I ended up selling our business about 60 days ago. The Heritage District is challenging right now. Businesses are, it's tough. Restaurants are struggling. Everybody's struggling to make ends meet. And so the why now for me is, yes, 2028, we'll see an amendment, but the reality is those changes, we won't see changes to a 2028 amendment to the development code until 2030. And honestly, we need to try and encourage investment and development into the district today because businesses need help today. It's just necessary. So I think any step in the right direction, sooner the better. With that, I am done.
Thank you, Commissioner Clausen. Any other comments, questions, concerns? Okay, at this point, I will close the public hearing on Z25-10 LDC text amendment and look for the commission for discussion, which I believe we've completed. So we've shared our thoughts. Do I have a motion and a second for Z25-10 LDC text amendment?
Motion to approve Z25-10.
Second,
Second.
please vote. Z251-0, I'm sorry, Z251-10 LDC text amendment passes 4-0. Thank you, commissioners. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, residents and stakeholders. Let's move into communication. Councilmember Torgerson, do you have anything you'd like to report on current or future events?
Be using the term this week. This Saturday, October 18th, there will be a live pumpkin carving event during harvest in the Heritage District. This event will take place at Water Tower Plaza from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. and will be open house style. So stop by anytime to enjoy the fun, carve a pumpkin, have a great day. The Heritage District visitors and businesses are encouraged to learn about the new developments coming soon to the downtown at diggingthedistrict.com. Construction projects can significantly impact visitors and businesses, so town staff will update the website regularly with information on parking, events, road closures, and other ongoing improvements in the Heritage District. In addition to sharing project renderings and interactive mapping tools, diggingthedistrict.com shares information about the Heritage District wayfinding and place marketing project. And that is all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Torgerson. Commissioners, anything to share or update? Mike, do you have a report for us?
Chair Kendall, no report for me this evening.
Perfect, thank you. I will take a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, let's vote to be done. It is now 6:54, the Redevelopment Commission meeting is adjourned. Thank you.